NDEs are a great example of this. Spirituality is a broad marketplace. It has many facets. You can be interested in enlightenment, the nature of reality. You can be interested in higher dimensional experiences. You could be interested in soul. You can be healing your personal or ancestral line. Like there's a
Mm.
broad number of skills and facets to consciousness that are part of this, the fullness, the matrix of our reality. And where people start is unique to them.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Blaise Kennedy with us. He's a spiritual teacher. We're going to talk about the experiences that he's had in his life, the things that he does, and all that good stuff. So, first of all, thank you so much, Blaise, for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
If I look at you and I look back at your childhood and you compare yourself to who you are now as an adult, do you feel like there's been a big shift in your life at some point, or do you feel like you were always the same type of person? Just getting a little bit about who little Blaise was growing up.
Hmm. Well, little Blaze didn't know or remember a lot about consciousness. So little Blaze, I won't do this whole interview in the third person. I didn't know very much about consciousness. It wasn't, or spirituality, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't reflected to me in my environment. So I had a limited palette to choose from when I was a child. I'm Canadian like you. I liked playing hockey. And I liked playing with my friends. And as I grew older, what really pulled me towards spirituality was the pain and suffering of life and the struggles that I had. I wasn't trying to be spiritual. It wasn't something that I was moving towards until I got really stuck doing the conventional things. So the older I got in my life, the more I struggled to do all the wonderful things I heard you do as a young person, to try things and go out in the world and experiment and fulfill their potential. And because I struggled so much, I got really stuck. And at that point, sort of a window opened up for me. And then it was really obvious, like, of course, spirituality is the foundation of my life. And of course, that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing. And of course, I have an interest and a natural ability to do that. In some ways, the first 24 years of my life, although beautiful in many ways, it's like living in a coma. My life really started actually much later, my conscious life, where I was able to choose something that was really, choose a life path that was really in line with the deeper aspects of myself. Yeah, that's how I would start the
Yeah,
answer.
absolutely. So you wouldn't have put yourself in a category of being a spiritual child or anything that was a little, you weren't different in any way. If looking back, you wouldn't seen yourself as different than others.
Uh, I mean, I think now that I work with people, I think everyone is unique
Mm.
and everyone is spiritual. And so that story could be applied to everyone. What I experienced as a child is that I had a lot of confidence. I had this sense that I could do whatever I wanted to do, but I couldn't ever actually put that to something in a way that worked. So I felt very, I don't know, gifted. But there was no place where those gifts really worked. I tried to make them apply them to athletics or education or music, and I found I just didn't actually have the motivation for excellence. If you're going to do
Mm.
anything in this world meaningful, like to become a musician, for example, you have to put in a tremendous amount of time, and it's going to have to be inspired continuously. There's going to have to be a lot of showing up and being
Mm.
deeply present to what you're doing. And I just, as much as I love music, I just didn't have that level of focus. And I sort of thought there was something wrong with me. Like, why can't I apply myself? Why don't I have the ability to take raw potential and manifest it in a way that creates excellence?
Mm.
I really sort of struggled to figure out what that gap was. Again, later in life, when I discovered spiritual practice in the broadest sense, I found my vehicle. I found the thing that I could put my 10 or 100,000 hours into
Hmm.
and stopped having that problem. So Yeah, I always wanted excellence. It was the sort of the driving factor of my life. I just had a really hard time finding it for a while.
Hmm. It's funny when you mention something like that about how much time and effort it takes. Just, you know, being a coach myself with musicians, that is key. People come in, they spend an hour with me, how much time they spend with me. I give them feedback, I give them some coaching advice, things that they need to start doing more of. But then the work is involved after they leave me, right? The work is between the time they see me and the next time they see me or whatnot. How much time are they putting into it? You know, are they really digging deep? If they want to be a songwriter, are they really sitting back and getting in touch with their inner self to actually know what they want to speak about in their writing? Things like that. But it takes, I guess I would, you're right in the sense that it would take effort, but it also takes awareness and calmness to get to that place. You have to be able to step back out of everything else, your day to day, your busyness of what's going on. So, in the same sense, when you were 24, you're saying you had decided to kind of go in this different, path and harness the gifts that you had. Was there a pivotal moment that you switched? Some people, I'm asking this, and there may not have been, yours may have blended, but a lot of people that I speak with have kind of a crossroads, or they might go into like a dark night of the soul type, as they say it, or something happens where they go, enough's enough, and something happens. Some people, when they have NDEs, same type of thing, right? They just are completely worn out, something bad happens, and then they spiritually wake up. So, was there anything that kind of moved you into that?
I mean, there's a pretty marked point. I got sent to a treatment center for drug addiction when I was 24.
Okay.
And what happened, I remember my my stepfather drove me to the treatment center. I remember I was 24 and I thought, I've wasted my whole life. I have screwed this all up. And within a couple of weeks of being there, my attitude had completely reversed. I realized I was full of in a treatment center full of people in their 60s, or in their 40s, who hadn't figured out this addiction thing yet. And I thought, wow, I'm actually at the beginning of my life. I'm not at the end of my life. I'm at the beginning of my life. And the great gift for me was, even though I was in a treatment center addressing a really ugly and unpleasant part of human life, I enjoyed it. The great gift for me was getting my work ethic back. And you know, at 24, I got my work ethic back. I learned that I actually like showing up for life. And I had this deep alignment with a part of myself that likes to show up for life. Before that, I would have real challenges being honest, real challenges doing the right thing. I avoided pain all the time. I didn't have a compass. I didn't know how to navigate life. As soon as I went to treatment, all of that changed really radically. But at the same time that I can say there's this really discrete point and change in life, the process of waking up, the process of being clear was quite progressive.
Mm.
So when I started, I knew very little. I wasn't very able to focus very well. I wasn't very connected to myself. And so progressively, as I did the work that we'll probably talk a lot about, I became more and more connected to my vehicle
Mm.
and the power that I have to move through life. So I'd say both.
Mm.
There was a discrete moment as
So
well.
you had found a newfound. See, this is why. Okay, so I had mentioned before we started talking about how before getting into a lot of the deep work that I do with music and all these different things and coaching, I do some coaching as well, like life coaching, things like that. I was working in financial banking. To anybody that's listening that is a financial banker or working in that, this is not anything against that career field. I think we all have different gifts and different reasons to do what we do. But I had lost a passion for life in a sense because I didn't know which direction I was going either. I was kind of just spinning my wheels. I knew deep down I was a musician. I was a creative. I was a spiritual person, an empath, all these different things. And yet I'd put myself in a position for money, if I'm being honest, because it made decent money at a young, I think I was 19 when I got the job or and I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do then for the rest of my life. And I had lost passion. I felt numb. I remember going into work and feeling like I couldn't recall time. Time kind of ceased to exist, and I was just kind of in a numb state. I wasn't addicted to anything or anything like that, but I would have the odd drink and just to make myself feel less of what I was feeling. And at some pivotal point, I just had enough. I'd had enough, and I had said, you know, I've got to make a change now before this gets bad. I don't think some people have that moment and it does get bad. So I luckily had the awareness in me that I didn't like the way I was feeling. I didn't have the passion for what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. And so I think it's important everybody has some sort of passion or light within them with the work that they do. Some people say, no, some people are the clock in, clock out people, but I don't know if I believe that. I have good friends who are construction workers who love their work. They love doing it. They literally love craftsmanship. They love being able to be with the guys on the or the girls doing the construction. Like that's what they enjoy. It's something they enjoy. I don't think anyone's meant to wake up every day and be miserable through the work they're doing. I think we all have kind of this purpose or this direction we're supposed to move in. And it sounds like after you had the treatment, you had you'd like a newfound purpose or newfound appreciation maybe of what was to come. I don't want to speak for you, but that's kind of what I'm getting from what you said. And yeah, is that true or
Yeah, I mean, it was the most obvious thing at the time, and I wondered how I'd lived my life without it. I discovered that I was fascinated by healing and consciousness, spirituality, in the forms that I was introduced to. I was fascinated by self-discovery. I didn't mind the pain of it. I didn't mind the difficulty. I didn't mind that it was hard work. I had seemingly had an endless amount of motivation. Uh, and just that raw experience of being motivated, capable, and feeling inspired was so powerful to me. Like I'd literally gone my whole life without having that. That was the thing that I was looking for, was that drive in myself. I couldn't find it practicing music. Couldn't find it as an athlete. Didn't not have that strength. Suddenly found it. It really solved all the problems in my life in the fact that it gave me a way to move through life no matter what happened. I remember realizing like, oh, if you're working on yourself, if your goal, your job is to be the best version of yourself, there's there's no opposition, there's no barrier. Like I'm not competing against anybody. It's basically me being with me. I can't do it wrong. It was incredibly freeing that my only project is to be with myself. That's all I have to do. And it made my life much simpler than it was before because I wasn't looking inside myself. But previously, I was not looking inside myself. I was trying actively not to feel what was happening for me.
mm,
And so there's no power in that. There's no direction in that. There's no light in that. There's no inspiration in that. Everywhere I went, there was kind of a dead end. So 24 years of that, or, it wasn't all like that, but years and years of that. And finally, oh, all those doors are closed. Let's try just being with myself. Loved it. Gave me endless direction. Yeah, that was very, very empowering for me. And I agree with you completely that, especially I notice this now when I sit with people all the time, what what you discover inside yourself as a passion is completely unique to you. You can't pick it out of a catalog. You find it inside yourself. And if you're not looking inside yourself, then you can end up in places that don't feel right for you. So
mm-hmm,
I started to have some guidance as well. How do you actually look inside yourself? The idea that I could be disconnected from myself hadn't even crossed my mind in the first period of life. And finally, I thought, oh, well, if I'm disconnected from myself, how could I possibly be successful? And it just became like
mm,
extremely clear to me. And then I thought, well, I'll just do the opposite of what I've been doing. Instead of moving away from myself, I'm just going to move toward myself. And that became the early guiding light.
No, I love that. And it was the, again, it's the awareness that you're disconnected. You need to be connected to yourself in order to kind of move forward, right? So, and see, this is what I mean is that a lot of people are disconnected, but they don't know they're disconnected. So there's generally some kind of, this is why the first question I'd ask is when was that, what was that barrier, that thing that hit you? And it looks like it was when you'd gone into the treatment or whatever, and you'd had, did you do internal work within that, and that's what kind of opened you up to this? And then as you came out of that, you moved towards it. I'm just trying to see how your kind of career took off from there.
My career.
Mhm.
Well, as soon as I remember being in the in the like gift shop, coffee shop in the treatment center and knowing, talking actually to a chaplain who I became very close with, knowing and that I was going to be a spiritual teacher someday. I just knew, I don't know how I knew that. And I had an immense amount of confidence for someone who was basically learning how to walk as a human being in a treatment center. What I realized is between me and that career potential was a lot of work.
Mm.
And so I just knew that was the goal. I knew that was my career. It kind of simplified my life. I'm not going back to university. I'm not going to do something else. I'm just going to do deep inner study. And I just set to work. And the more that I did that, the more it became clear. It gave me more, I got more and more direction. The more connected I was to myself, the more life revealed itself. And I got all kinds of wonderful, you could call them job or life opportunities that supported my path. I just, wherever I went, life confirmed that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And for years, I kept thinking, God, at some point, I'm going to have to work in a bank or sell insurance. I know like the re pragmatic reality of life is going to come for me, and I'm not going to get to sit around all day just exploring consciousness and meditating. And that they just never, they never came. It just went on and on. And I just realized like, even if my mother doesn't understand this path yet, life is sanctioning it. This is what life wants me to do. And I just got the confidence to do something that, again, isn't reflected in my community. There's nobody being like, oh, you should be a spiritual teacher someday. No, no one gave me that advice. I just did what I thought I was supposed to do, what felt right for me, and kind of just put my head down and did that for a long, long time, very continuously.
I wanted to talk a little bit about consciousness and the idea of consciousness. It's always something that's fascinated me. And also, in the same breath, meditation, right? So, meditation, I've always said music is my meditation. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I've come to understand my higher self. And I only discovered that probably I've written 5 albums. I would think probably during the second album creation, realizing that even since childhood when I was writing, I would pick up a guitar or play my piano and I would hit the chords and I would just say what came through. I didn't write anything down. I would just start playing the chords and I would just say what came through. And I would say 80 to 90% of the time, that is how the song would end up. I wouldn't change much. Maybe there were things that I was saying that I knew I was trying to say, but the words didn't come out fast enough, kind of like a freestyle. So I would adjust that. But for the most part, the songs, and to this day, when I'm writing, come out the way that it just interprets through the music creation, through the creation process. What I don't think I was realizing for many years is that as that is a part of my higher self, that is a part of something pretty divine. And I think in all music creation that happens. So I always looked at my meditation in that form. Now, I have become more introduced to meditation and different forms of meditation. There's there's a forms of meditation where I'm in stillness, let's say, and then there's when I'm doing music creation, I'm not in still. I am in stillness, but there's still flows going through that I'm kind of grabbing a hold of. In sitting meditation, let's say, I'm recognizing now thoughts going through, but I'm letting them just continue through. Instead of grabbing them and thinking, I'm just letting them kind of. Whereas it when I'm writing, it's coming through and I'm saying it. I'm saying it like I'm actually talking it through. It's I'm still letting it go, but I'm saying it. So I don't know. I'm trying to decipher the difference between the two at this point because I do obviously more music creation than I do meditation. In fact, I have such a busy mind that I struggle with like sitting meditation. And I wanted to kind of know if that became a big integral part of your journey was understanding meditation or consciousness at a deeper level.
Yeah. Oh, so I love listening to about your process. Where I would describe meditation or my experience now, obviously, has shifted a lot from where I started. That's the point of it. The point of it is that you do this thing, and then you have this transformation or this realization or both, and then life becomes wildly different for you. So I'm at the wildly different part. If we go back to the beginning, when I started meditating, I just like you. I didn't have a technique. It never occurred to me that I should learn a technique. I got a book on meditation. Actually, I got a course in miracles, which isn't
Mm.
really a book on meditation. It has a year-long workbook. And I did it for a year. I didn't actually understand a single thing that the workbook told me to do. I would just sit there and I never really wanted to learn a method. I never wanted to do a very specific thing. I just had this instinct to sit there. And I was so happy just to sit there. And just like you, I just followed. And you in songwriting, I just did what felt natural to me. And so I spent 2 years, like, I was so happy that I would get to sit and do this. I based a lot of my identity around the fact that I was doing this thing consistently. I'd gone my whole life without being disciplined, and I was just so happy. I was
Mm.
like, "Oh, I'm going to take time out of my life to sit." I was just, it was a thrill that I could do that every day, and I never thought much about like what I was trying to get out of it. I just sat to sit, and after a couple of years, uh, my life shifted. I went to kind of a big door with many facets opened up for me. And I got a book by spiritual teachers. The first time I'd ever read anybody talk about consciousness, and they talked about a way of meditating, uh, not with a goal in mind, but with a kind of with a possibility. Like, hey, you're doing this practice. Here's this possibility. You could realize or recognize this facet of life. And it kind of hit me. Uh, it hit me really, really hard. And I had a very powerful spiritual awakening experience, which again changed the course of my life. At the beginning, I just wasn't, I didn't want to learn a technique. I just didn't, was not, I didn't want to make it into something that someone else told me how to do. I just wanted to sit there. And I think it actually worked really well for me. And finally, I was ready for some deeper teachings and guidance. For the first 2 years of my life, I was really involved in, or 2 years of my process, I was really involved in AA and NA, and I had a lot of friends in the recovery community. And that was, meditation's not a big part of that world. So I did it very silently, and I did the steps and I did what I was supposed to do. And then I was just kind of waiting for something to happen. And then this whole new level arose where teachers and a whole new path arose for me, and I had a very big transition into that new life.
I like how you mentioned that you didn't have a specific, technique or design. What's interesting is when coaching music, I have people who want to learn how to write music, for instance. The issue can become that everybody's different. I've kind of put it, the Myers-Briggs
Yeah, yeah,
personality trait.
yeah.
I've kind of looked at two different type of musicians in general that I work with, and one is a thinker, one is a feeler. And so the thinkers are the ones who want to know the whys, the answers to everything. They want to know, they want to have their chords laid out correctly in the exact precise spot. They want to know, how do you create a rhyme scheme within a song? How do you do this? Why would you do that? A lot of whys. They're fixated on the actual beginning to end. Is everything laid out correctly? They're generally the students that have a lot of writing all over their sheets. They want to know what notes are being hit. So these are the thinkers. The feelers are the ones where they really grab a hold more of their emotion immediately. They don't care about the whys. They a lot of times just want to say what's on their mind or feel what comes out naturally. Um, Without hesitation, they will go into a deep emotion while singing, maybe crying, different things like that. So it's the feeler type. And in creating, they're pulling from somewhere different. Both of these sides are important, right? It's kind of like left brain, right brain. They're both important in the whole process because you can also go way off the rails as a feeler. If you're sitting there crying the entire time while you're singing a song, you can lose the listener, you can lose yourself in what you're trying to actually accomplish. The thinker can get too much in their own head and just have a lot of hiccups along the way. So the idea is, some people like technique. They like to know exactly how to do something like a thinker would. And then other people just want to feel it out for a while. And then after they feel it, I feel like you'd probably be more the feeler type until you got into your technique. So you were feeling until you understood, okay, let's maybe have some structure around it. And so that's generally what happens with my feeler students that are doing music is I'm coaching them. I'm like, hey, just start playing some chords, start singing. And they're the ones who are okay with doing that. It's very vulnerable to do that, to just say what comes out. And it's probably the same thing with the work that you do if you're working with people and they have to actually tell you what's going on in their life or just different things. Some people are more hesitant to say certain things or they mask it up. Other people are like, blah, just hard on their sleeves. Um, and again, the outer edge of both sides can be problematic. So you kind of want to have little bit of a balance. And I didn't know if that comes up at all in any of the work that you do, or if you've noticed the same type of thing with clients that you work with. If people are they generally all coming to you as feelers and very open to engaging, or do you get a kind of a combination?
There's a lot of overlap here. I wouldn't break it down as thinking and feeling, but
Hmm.
the same principle is really important. So spirituality, this is NDEs are a great example of this. Spirituality is a broad marketplace. It has many facets. You can be interested in enlightenment, the nature of reality. You can be interested in higher dimensional experiences. You could be interested in soul. You can be healing your personal or ancestral line. There's a broad number of skills and facets to consciousness that are part of this, the fullness, the matrix of our reality. And where people start is unique to them. People have skills or talents or proclivities or problems that they need to solve. They start not with the fullness usually. They start with a facet that they can make sense of. This is what they are. This is what their work is now. So just like somebody who comes to you and they are dominant feeler, when people come to me and one aspect of their consciousness dominates or is dominating now, I think the same thing that I'm hearing. Embrace it, develop it, and over time, integrate it into all the other facets that are part of the picture. And this is
Mm-hmm.
my job as a teacher. When I started teaching, I what I knew was my own path. And so when I would sit with people, I'd go, okay, I think they're going to go from A to B to C to D. They're going to have this experience and then this experience and then this experience and this experience. And I found out very quickly that that's not true. People start with a broad spectrum of skills and capacities and blind spots or things that they do not have connection to. And my job is to take a whole bunch of people coming from diverse starting points, say yes to where they are, help them grow in that area of their life, and when they're ready, when they're willing, when it feels right, to expand more and more and more. Because I believe the product that I am selling or that I'm inviting ultimately is the fullness of life. That there's no one aspect of consciousness or self or experience that's going to satisfy you. Life's going to ask you to do more and more and more. The more successful you are at healing or awakening, the broader your curriculum's going to get. And as a result, my job is to know the map broadly and to meet you uniquely in it. And the more that I work with people, the more that I learn, the more that I recognize, the better I get at teaching because people show me things that I didn't know necessarily. And so my world just keeps expanding as a result of having or getting to meet people where they are and figuring out how to integrate them into all the other facets of life. So some people come to me just as an example who have a long history of meditation. And I my work is not just, I don't get people to just meditate. So then I have to support them to use the skills that they've developed and the capacity that they develop with their meditation practice and apply it to other fields or other domains of life. This is my great joy because I love integrated living, integrated practices. I love the fullness of consciousness. So I'm always inviting people to expand their world and use what they have now as their base.
From a personal level, do you find that your meditation practice, the way that you connect with consciousness, has grown a lot throughout the process? Like, have you, I'm curious about it, and I say it like that because I guess I'm always trying to relate it to what I'm doing with music and things like that,
Yeah.
right? So, have you gone kind of into deeper meditation over time, or do you find it's become less and less? I guess what I'm trying to say is when I started writing, so I go through ups and downs through my life. And at times where I feel like I need to write and I need to let things out, I go into a writing process. Okay. And then there'll be kind of more dull times in my life where I've got more things going on in my life, maybe possibly, or I just don't have the amount of time that I usually did. So that practice of writing kind of takes a little bit of a backseat. And I can
Mhm.
feel it internally. I can feel it when that happens. It's like I need that constantly. And I know a lot of people who want to learn how to meditate, and it is a discipline in a sense that you have to be able to set aside your own time to do this. And I'm wondering if you, starting when you're 24, just kind of getting into it, and then you go all the way up to where you are now, have you found a balance within your life to get that practice in?
Well, it's been foot on the gas pedal, maxed out every day since I was maybe 24 when I had this awakening experience when I was 26. I at first I meditated so I could have experiences, right? I meditated so I could explore. Excuse me. I did this practice so that I could dip into something. And what awakening did to me is uh, it's like it's like being set on fire. The experiences were coming after me, and suddenly my practice was just to deal with what was happening to me. So every day, if since I was 26 or 27, I just deal with the intensity of life that comes at me. And so practice stopped being something like, oh, I'm making an effort to try and get somewhere, to like, life is pushing me as fast as possible, deeper and deeper into self and consciousness. And I just have to deal, I have to show up and deal with it. So,
Mm,
yeah, there was a moment where I stopped having to put effort to create change in my life. And at the same time, everything in my life had to change to support that transformation was a everyday, constant occurrence that dominated my life.
mm,
And so there's challenges with this. It's not easy. There's a lot of difficulty and discomfort and pain that comes with that. But I got a really heavy and continuous dose of the thing that I was looking for. And I'm eternally grateful for it. So today, like in terms of what practice looks like for me, that's changed quite a bit over the years. When I started, meditation was the primary pathway, was the thing that I did. And over the years, the need to sort of sit down in silence lessened dramatically. But then all these other things came up that became really helpful, and primarily being in connection with other people, which is kind of the cornerstone or the core of my work, is the experience of feeling connection. And I could speak endlessly about why that's important, whether that's with a therapist or a friend or your child or anybody. That sort of is my primary practice, including sitting with people. So meditation has kind of overtaken my life. The experience of being present has overtaken my life. And the way it shows up most times is being present with myself I'm being present with someone else. I'm sort of meditating in the full participation of life. That's how it looks like most days.
Is meditation simply, do you feel that meditation is simply daydreaming, or are we tapping into something higher?
Yeah, so millions of words have been written about meditation, and often these words are pointers that help you connect with a facet of life. So, for example, being present and connecting with your breath, or noticing the stillness that is present in life. This is meditation, all the strategies and activities that we do, the intention that we have. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do this thing, and it has these basic principles. All of that is meditation. When you ask, is meditation daydreaming? My answer today is that life itself is daydreaming.
Mm,
The experience, every experience that you ever have is like a dream. It is the experience of being consciousness. Now, we can be really absorbed in what is happening within our lives, within our dream. We can really be focused on the objects and the thoughts and all the stuff. But the one of the primary outcomes of the spiritual path or of the meditative path or contemplative path is to realize the nature of reality, that life is a dream, life is creation. And so as you move towards this realization progressively, what happens is that the divide between the activity of meditation and just the experience of being, like your every moment of your life, dissolves.
mm,
So for me today, I would say there's no difference between meditating and every moment of your life. When you start, you do this intentional thing called meditating so that you can be very present to experience itself and begin to dissolve the divide between this activity called meditation and every moment of your life. So what I'm saying is, well, there's no difference. That's not what I would suggest you should do, because I think the practice and intention and the desire and the fire and all the things that get us to meditate and the intention of it is extremely important and powerful. You don't want to just sit around saying, oh, everything's consciousness. You want to put a lot of effort into it. But that effort over time, that intention over time should relax you. The primary outcome, I believe, of meditation is that it should relax you physically, emotionally, energetically, and it should soften and relax your consciousness and open your focus over time, not in a straight line. Like you don't just become progressively more relaxed without, lots of energy and stuff arising and having a radical process of transformation. Yeah, but the point is that you do this practice with intention so that you realize something fundamental about life, that life is meditation, life is an experience that you are having, witnessing, being, and
mhm.
that that's the goal in many respects, is to have that realization dominate your life.
I love the answer to that because it brought me back to when I was in high school. And I think maybe you'll agree that this may have been my first introduction to what meditation is, because even though I was walking to school, I had my school bag on, and I'm walking to school and I'm seeing my arms. I've said this on a couple episodes. I've seen my arms kind of moving like this. And I thought, what is this? What is my arm doing? And every time whenever I get anything that's like, I keep getting goosebumps. But I remember I was walking and I kind of like stood there in this parking lot in between where I was walking and my school. And I started just looking at my hand and I started moving my hand. Now, anyone looking at me might have thought I was on acid or something. But the point was, because I looked like I was in a different world for a moment, likely from the outside. But speaking of that, I feel like I was on the outside. It was the first time that I had realized that there's this mechanical body moving for me, the I am, the whoever I am, and I'm recognizing it outside of this moment. And I was kind of like, I got kind of this weird, overwhelming feeling, almost this whoosh, this feeling of like I started getting an anxiety or panic about it because I didn't understand it. I was probably about 15 at the time, and trying to understand what am I thinking right now? What does this mean? Why am I looking at my hand and from an outside perspective? Obviously I then continued on and went to school, but it then started kind of a ripple effect of many years of some deep anxieties around death and dying, and that's what kind of introduced me into near death experiences because I realized that this was just a bottle, this is a body, and something outside of me was recognizing this body. And I do feel, looking back, that that was my first idea of kind of I was like in a walking meditation. I'd kind of stepped outside of myself. And I think a lot of times when you get into meditation, when you get into songwriting, whatever you're doing that's calming your mind or bringing yourself into a relaxed state, is that it kind of gives you that awareness, and it gives you the okay to do it, to step outside of it, because your day to day is so busy, right? Wake up, feed the kids, get busy, go to work, whatever you're doing, like you're always kind of like in this motion. But if you can stop for a moment, that's when you kind of step back a little bit. And so when you were just explaining about it being the primary outcome in meditation is to have like a relaxed state, to get you into a relaxed state. Well, once you're in that relaxed state, I think kind of the idea of everything can come up, right? So I guess I'm saying this because when that happens, I think where I've struggled, and maybe other people listening in meditation have struggled, is that idea of, okay, when you get into that place, what do you do when those thoughts start flying through and they try to grab a hold of you? Is it focusing on, some people say focusing on breathing, or what has been your biggest thing to do that keep you in that space?
Yeah, I'll answer your question, but I want to speak to, it's a great question. But I want to speak to a couple of things that you're speaking about, we're speaking about. Uh, So there, one part of meditation is I technique. I sit here, I do this thing, I practice. And that discipline is very, very important. So not going to say you don't need that. But in your story, what you start to tell me is that you have a natural knowing or gift that starts to flow or appear without effort. And there are two places where I hear this in you. One is, wow, when I'm in a song, when I'm writing, I'm not trying. There's just a natural flow state and things just start moving through me. And this other experience that you have earlier in your life that just arises naturally. So one part of meditation is effort. The other part of meditation is leaning in to the natural intelligence that can't be taught, the things that happen to us or that we know or that we feel that nobody could teach us, that arise naturally out of our being. And those can be supported. When they are raw, like you're describing this experience as a 15-year-old, it can be scary because it's going to change your experience in a way that can be very disorienting or scary. And we don't know necessarily what to do about that. And what will happen as things start to change, we will have our sort of natural functioning will take over and try and control or manage the change. We don't know where it's going. Who knows what's going to happen if I sort of let go, so to speak. It's really natural to have this desire to hold the form of life and not let it just drift off because we don't know where it's going. We don't know what's going to happen. Again, as you describe, all those people who are around you, they probably wouldn't have been much help either to you. They would have thought you were on drugs or not really known how to guide you.
Right.
So when we have things, experiences like that, my work, my primary invitation is to find somebody who can support that, be with you through that,
Yeah.
help it express itself. So the way that I do that with people again is just that you are here and that I'm here. And when we talk about these things and we feel them, we relate to them together. And our relationship, our shared presence becomes a support, like a structure that holds the process in you that's shifting into something different. So there are ways to support it by yourself, and I can speak to those. But if you ask me what's the most effective thing, is if somebody sits with that
Mm.
15-year-old you or that songwriter and feels with you. When somebody has the capacity to feel with you, then you kind of have a handrail to hold on to, in this world, you have connection, and that allows the experience to move more naturally. That's what spiritual teachers are. That's a big part of what they do is people are able to explore consciousness with someone who can go with them and creates a sort of safety or ease in themselves that allows this transition into whatever part of life, whatever part of consciousness we're shifting into. And also that can
Yeah.
recognize this and say, actually, something really wonderful is happening to you. Like when you describe this experience, it's not a scary thing. It's a really wonderful thing. Yes, I can feel your fear with you, but to invite, encourage, support, to see, to recognize the beauty and the natural gifts and capacity that we all are born with. So that's what I would recommend. If something like that is happening for you, or you want something like that to happen to you, or something like that happened to you when you're 15, find someone to be with you who can lend their presence and support that to grow. When you are on your own, when you don't have that, there's lots of things that you could use as an anchor or a bridge. There's such a broad spectrum of practices. Your breath is one. It's very popular because pretty much anybody over the course of history at all levels of human consciousness, everybody can focus on their breath. The very exciting thing about consciousness today and the world as it is that the subtlety, the not to get too technical, but the subtle dimensions of consciousness are increasingly accessible to everybody. So 50 years ago, the range of practices or the things that you could expect, we call them ordinary people off the street to come in and be able to do if they went to a meditation retreat was quite narrow. There was a density to consciousness, and very few people had breakthroughs. Today, uh, everybody I work with, I mean this really literally, everybody I work with has a breakthrough. So the ease of access to things that were previously difficult is changing rapidly. And what this means is there are an increasing number of practices or facets of consciousness that you can lean into and have access to yourself quite quickly. The challenge is knowing what they are. And how would you pick the best one? It's not about picking the best one. It's about picking the one that kind of works or feels right for you. So I'll just name a couple that are particularly prominent. One is the practice of self-inquiry. This is a personal practice. And it's to just continually to focus your attention on the question, like, who am I? And this is naturally happening in you when you start to look at your hand and say, what is this?
Mhm.
What I see a hand, but what is it that's actually experiencing the hand? So you can get guidance to do self-inquiry practices. It's very, very powerful when it works for people. And you can use that as an anchor. Just keep inquiring. It's not necessarily going to bring a lot of peace to you because you're going to find that it actually kind of really dislodges your attachment to reality. Another thing you could do is you can focus on awareness. Again, 50 years ago, if somebody said the word awareness, people would say, I don't really know what that is. Today, I work with people and I ask them, what qualities would you describe that awareness has? And people with no background in meditation will go, oh, awareness is a empty space. I'll say, how big is it? I'll say, boundless. So what you're saying is that you, at the core of your experience is a witnessing boundless empty space. And they'll say, yeah. I say, okay, well, then just keep coming back to that and see where that takes you.
Right.
For other people, it could be their heart. It could be the light of their soul, right? It's really broad.
Hmm.
How do you know which one is the right one for you? You feel it. You feel it in the same way as the way you know which music you like, right? The
Hmm.
one that touches you.
Yeah.
And so this is the big message is this is a really exciting time. If you are interested in consciousness or healing or awakening or any of the things that we're talking about, there's never been a better time to get into this. It is the most accessible time in at least recent human history, and that is increasing as every day goes by. So my my invitation is to move towards the things that interest you and the things that are happening to you with support, find people to support you, and explore with curiosity because this is a great time to get into it.
Yeah, I love how too you're saying that it's different for each person in the sense that I've had a few different meditation practices with teachers, people trying to guide me, and a few of them spoke to me and a few of them didn't. So just by the different ways that I was connecting in in my meditation. So it is important to find someone who can leverage different types. Like you're saying, there's different things that we can be doing, and if it does, one thing doesn't work for someone, maybe another thing will. For instance, some people will say like a grounding cord. Other people will say, "Oh, we're
Yeah.
going to take these butterflies and we're going to fly." Like there's different ways I've seen people describe,
Yeah.
and I've come to realize that I think that it's not like a one, it's just like the writing. It's just like my songwriting. Everyone comes to me and they right away they say, "Well, how do I do this?" Well, I have to get to know a little bit about that person first. I have to get to know about the ways they approach things, the approaches they've maybe already taken, and then I have to kind of lead them that way. So I would think that with you being kind of a spiritual leader, a spiritual teacher, when you're working with people, you're kind of I don't want to say holding their hands, but you're kind of guiding them in a way that, would be reflective of who they are. I would say it's almost like customized to who they are. I'm wondering if you work directly with people one to one, or have you done, because I would think, I don't know if you do group type sessions with, and
Oh, I
you
do
do all of
all.
it. So I just want to know a little bit about more what your practice is, like what you do, and
No,
how
I
people
love
kind of get
I
into
love
touch with
talking
you.
about teaching, and I love that we
Yeah.
share this in common. Um, just something that comes up for me. Just I named things that could people could focus on. I'll name one more because you named it earlier. You said when you write, there's just this flow of life. Just things just come to you and it's natural. You don't think about what you're going to write. You just sit there and you get in a sort of a flow state. And this is one of the other dominant qualities of consciousness that I think uh, can be very powerful as a meditation technique. And that is to just notice that everything is moving instead of trying to be still, or instead of trying to uh, get to some particular realization, you just notice your thoughts are moving, your sensations are moving, the things that you see and feel are moving. Everything is always in a flow state. And so this is another really dominant meditation technique. And when I'm relating to people, when I sit with people, again, whether in groups or in um, other formats, it's this sense of movement is a really important factor. It's how we discover things. We discover things because we pay attention to what's happening for us and it changes. So more information arises all the time. So I'm sitting here and I have access to the experience that I have now. If I just stay here, or even sink or relax deeper into myself, more and more information arises, more and more content, more and more experience. So when I sit with people, my job is to be present with them and look through, feel through the transparency of consciousness and help them feel the more of themselves that is arising into this moment. And I
Mm,
can give direction or guidance. I can see things that people don't necessarily see. I can help them know where to look. I can point within themselves in more direction. But what all my work is really designed for people to feel more of themselves. They don't just eat out of my hand or do what I say is true. The point of spiritual practice in working with me is to see more of themselves, to feel more of themselves. And when we are relating, when there is connection, when somebody is really with you, it happens to be the case that much more will arise when there is someone who is with you.
mm,
This is a beautiful phenomenon of life. The connection pulls life out of us, pulls deeper life out of us. And so this is my joy. My joy is that I sit with people, I feel connection, and I look through through consciousness to feel like their life, everything that has ever happened to them is here in their consciousness, the history of their family and their ancestors, their soul history, all of this is right here contained in their consciousness. And what our work is they just haven't seen more of it yet.
mm,
Our practice is that if we sit here together, we will see more of it. And when we see more of it, it can be integrated into their normal experience and become part of them. It can become part of their conscious life. So how do we do this? Well, If I sit with somebody one-on-one, I don't have to teach them very much. I basically just sit with them and say, what are you noticing now? And this is what I feel, and help orient them to the fact that we're here together. We kind of plug in together and just look at what is here. But I also teach a lot. I teach practices that help whole groups of people do this. So, one model of spiritual teaching and teaching in general is that I have this capacity and I have this knowledge, and then I just kind of help individuals. But what's particularly interesting to me and what I'm doing in my life is I'm creating a pool of people who all work together. So the skill of seeing deeply into each other, being deeply interrelated, of creating intimacy, of being able to acknowledge and recognize the inner, profoundly beautiful inner structure of human consciousness is a skill, a capacity that all of us have. And when we work together, when we practice together, I develop my capacity to see, and you develop your capacity to see. And what we create is a whole community or a field of consciousness that has deep capacity and presence.
Hmm.
And this community works with itself. These people practice. My people, my students, or whatever you want to call them, they practice with me. They practice with each other. They are empowered to learn more about life through the experience of being with themselves and being with other people. So this is my primary offering is a community that grows together. And yesterday, for example, I sat with a group of people that I've been working with for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And I just like when I sit with this group of people, we are greater than this. The sum of us is greater than the individual capacity of all of us. We create a field that is very increasingly mature and capable and sensitive and loving and
Hmm.
wise. And what I'm inviting people to do essentially is to plug into that community to be a part of it. We are building a kind of infrastructure of consciousness that the more that you are here, it gets stronger. This is essentially my vision for the world at large is like there really is in the deeper levels of consciousness one integrated collective consciousness
Hmm.
that we're all part of. And we are leveraging our capacity to be related as a way of building that out. So in our normal world, I assume, just like I did, people feel quite individuated and separate. And, and often spiritual path can look like that. I'm going to do my work for me. But what I emphasize is the fact that that's not really true. That's part of the truth is that we're separate beings, but primarily at the levels of love and light, we are deeply interrelated. The structure of consciousness is like a fabric, and the fabric has rules, it has principles, it has a form that can be followed, just like music. There is some amount of music that is structural that doesn't change, and then there's creativity within that structure. So my job is to create the structure and to guide people to practice within the subtle dimensions of consciousness where there's deep connection, interrelatedness, and then to create, express naturally and uniquely what they are and how they feel and how they experience life, to bring their whole being into this field of consciousness to become part of life.
Hmm.
So that's what I do. Often that means that we have to start with training some basic principles and understanding how connection and relationship works. And then from there, you can go anywhere you want.
Mm. I love that you do that in a group type setting only because I've always had this feeling like we so many people are walking this life feeling so alone, right? It's kind of it seems to happen to a lot of people whether they admit it or not at different times in their life. Could be childhood, adolescence, early adulthood. There's this feeling of you're you're in charge of everything in your life and you're alone, and when you can find people who are resonating at the same energy, that I just think that I see this future where there's more of that, and I believe that's what creates change in our world is that deep flow within a group of people, whether it's our entire world, whether it's in small groupings. But I think it feels, number one, you feel like you're connected a little bit more. I've found that even by saying some of the people I've met through doing this podcast is I keep saying, oh, I keep meeting my people. I don't understand what that means, but I'm starting to understand what it means. Because I'm starting to, I have concepts through my life, and then I'll interview someone like yourself, and you'll say something that triggers a thought in me of an assurance of, oh yes, okay. It's like, oh, I remember feeling that, or I feel that's true, and now you're resonating on that. My point is, when you're with someone, at times it can really help you kind of progress quicker a little bit in a way, instead of it just feeling like you're on your own doing, you have to do it all on your own. So you can say something and it triggers something within me. That's amazing. It's beautiful that you do it in group settings. It's amazing that you do it in, uh, one to one. I want to know how people, I'm sure you're busy, but I'm wondering how people contact you or get in contact with you. Like, do you have a website and things like that that
Sure do. I have a website. I have a YouTube channel where I make content and I talk about all these things in depth. I run free events. Again, I do meditations on a couple times a month that are free and other events that are free. And I invite people to experience what it is to notice that we're here together. And so again, there's so many meditation techniques, but if you come to a meditation or free event, I will emphasize the fact that can you feel that we are here together sharing the same space? And this becomes the thing that this becomes our anchor. This can become part of our anchor, that we use relationship as our meditative anchor. This is a big part of what I'm doing. So when people can contact me because they want to work with me, I meet with anybody. I have a call. You can just hang out with me and talk about your process. I run groups and I have a forum to join those groups and I have free events. All that's on my website. You can get there by going to blaisekennedy.com. You can also go to my YouTube channel, which is Blaise here. All those links are present there.
I didn't even see your YouTube channel, so that's I'm gonna check that out. I'll put all that obviously in the show notes so people can get in contact with you if they're interested in the work you do. But when I talk to people like yourself, I do a lot of scribbling. I've shown this before to people that I write through the whole thing, and then I put these offshoots, I'll call it. It's like an arrow, and it'll put a piece that something you've said, and then there'll be an arrow that comes out. And I've tried to grab a hold of it, but there's about six arrows that I didn't quite get to. But maybe there's a time when we can reconnect and maybe have you back or something, because this has been a really
Yeah.
interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I always end my each episode though the same way, and this is digging pretty deep, but you've lived your life and you work with people, and in a general sense, if you were to come up with any reasoning, whether it's the unconscious or the conscious mind or whatever it is, I always try to ask people why they believe we come here and do what we do here in this world.
So when you say here, I'm assuming you mean the earth specifically.
The experience that you and I are having as Joe and Blaise having this conversation in this physical form.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels to it, and people, it has many aspects for people, and those can be very unique. Generally speaking, life as a human being is an opportunity. There's actually a scarcity of this kind of experience in the universe. And what we have here is quite unique. So the purpose of creation broadly is to experience. It's because we can. Again, if we describe reality as a dream, or if you experience consciousness as a dream manifestation, it inverts life. Life is not something that you get out of. Life is something that you are going into.
Mm.
All of life is a going deeper into experience. And I would describe Earth as a deep going into. We've gone quite far into the experience of dreaming to have all of the very real feeling physical experiences that we have had. And in that, within that, there can also be profound sense of service, profound sense of burden. There can be all kinds of karmic reasons why, we could call them karmic reasons why we are here, things that we carry or things that we are bringing. But broadly speaking, we are here because we can experience. We are here so that we can experience the separation and the depth of experience that human beings have, which is unique.
Got a few really awesome quotes there. I like to quote people when they say really amazing things. I like life is an opportunity, and it could be the thumbnail. I didn't ever think about it that way. And you also said that, I don't know what you said. You said something about the, I'm going to rephrase it in my sense is that life is sacred, like the experience we're having isn't something that you know, it's kind of the idea of people sign up for this, like it's an extreme opportunity. It's not, I think you said it's not everywhere. I don't know how you said it. You said it's limited in where you can experience it. So um it really kind of showcases how people should really appreciate what we're doing here. And but
Well,
that goes down a deep rabbit hole of how you said that. So I it's
it's easy to say you can appreciate it once you have that context. Again, that's the point of spirituality.
mm,
It's it's to create a higher context on this life that holds the suffering and limitations and pain and difficulty of human life, the impermanence of it from a higher perspective. When you don't have that higher perspective, it's not obvious that you
mm.
should be grateful for this necessarily. So we do all this work, we have these realizations, we strive so we can be at peace about the nature of life and human experience. Not so that we can be free of it, but so that we can have a context that allows us to know that no matter what happens, no matter how difficult it is, fundamentally, everything's okay.
Thank you so much, Blaise, for coming on today. This has been an amazing conversation. I've loved every minute of it. I appreciate you and I appreciate the work that you're doing. I generally, just acknowledge people who are doing this work. I understand that it's part of who you are now and it's part of like the passion of it. Obviously seems like something that's very a natural thing for you now. And it probably, I like to appreciate it because not everybody gets the appreciation. And some people, when people appreciate me, sometimes I have trouble taking it. I kind of step back, but then I'm learning to accept the appreciation and just to kind of be like, okay, that's okay. Sometimes it's nice to pat yourself on the back for the work we do, right? So I'm just sending that out to you. I really do appreciate you. I always turn to the audience and say, please continue to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Follow the channels of the guests I have. Everybody's doing amazing work, and this is the reason why we have the Soul Inspired. So, but again, Blaise, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you to you and your listeners. Take care.
So